Thank you for being here. Thank you for inviting me. So yes, I'm basically going to talk to you about something that I think is tailored for you guys, for the Vancouver development scene, mainly because, how do I move up? Okay. Mainly because, you have the big studios, and the big studios, they want to pretty much limit the risk, and they want to ship pretty much the same formula, the same game over and over because it limits the risk, right? And they target the core gamers, they say, but I feel they mostly target the teenagers, that can spend hours and hours playing the game on their couch. On the other hand, you have the social gaming industry that grew up. And pretty much when you look at it, I think it became like this. It actually emerged in the last few years. It was disruptive. It was the new blue ocean. But pretty quickly, it became formulaic. It became the same game. You have an energy bar. Any action you take, it depletes. And then you have either to wait or to pay to replenish your energy bar. So the thing is, whatever was cool and easy and agile to get in a couple of years ago is now this. So I want to talk to you about this because I feel like Vancouver is a place where you have many independent studios that open up, and you want to explore social gaming or free-to-play. But I want to talk about the fact that we need not to look at it in a formulaic way, and because it's about being disruptive, we need to be disruptive about the model that led us to this. So, what we call social gaming basically leaves the gamers cold. I'm pretty much a gamer. I don't want to do anything with social gaming because I feel like it's not talking to me at all. And it's interesting because the gamers themselves, they are pretty social. So why do we call social gaming something that leaves gamers away? When you look at these games, the first games were multiplayer, actually for lack of AI. But the gamers, they always knew that playing with friends was way better, either on the same screen or split screen or in the arcades or even in the early internet games. Also, when you look at all the tools they developed and used, all these tools are social. Aside from the game, they want to talk to one another. It's also pretty interesting to look at the fact that when you look at the core of all these applications, they're all about communication, and they pretty much make the core of what social media is today. When you look at Facebook, that's pretty much all this merged into one. Furthermore, when you look at the MRC logo, there's a Pac-Man on it. It's a gamer's stuff, like QuakeNet network. So also I want to toss in the fact that when I think these days geek is chic. I think geek is going mainstream. It started with movies like fantasy movies, like Lord of the Ring and Harry Potter. By the way, Lord of the Ring is made by a pretty geeky producer it's a pretty geeky movie. And it gradually evolved to being superhero movies that are so mainstream that you actually can take your girlfriend to. And these movies actually are the top of the box office right now. So, I really feel like geek is chic now. On the other hand, gaming has become a part of pop culture, and it's like these days it's actually okay to be a gamer. The Playmate of the Month actually said that she started playing video games as she was 5. She started with Zelda on the SNES. You have the marching band actually featuring many video game characters and games. That's 14 million views. The rest of their videos actually has like 50,000. Of course, you have the music smash hit video games. Even YouTube on their Rewind video for 2012 featured a reference to Halo, to Minecraft, and even to internet sensation Felicia Day. So even when you look at Obama, he's actually okay to pose buying a video game for her daughters. So really, to me, game is getting more and more mainstream, and it's okay. You know, gamers can actually go out of their closet now. Oh, good, I can see my comments now. Interesting, nice. Sorry. Excellent, I know what I'm supposed to say now. So the last line of my comments is that more and more people grew playing video games. And so for all of us now, it's normal, it's part of everyday life. It's not that, you know, even the term being a gamer is actually strange. You don't say, I'm a movie watcher. We all watch movies. So I think we're the first generation now where it's okay to be a gamer, so everybody can, you know, indulge. So gamers are social, and geek is chic. Two main things. So without further ado, let me introduce you to our savior, the social core gamer. He's pretty much the same guy that made our industry the dominant form of entertainment on the planet, because we spend big on AAA games and on console. So that's us, you know, we shell out the dough, right? That guy has experience, or girl, I guess, you know, sorry, has experience playing games, and he's attracted by games that are deep. He's not afraid of a challenge, he actually wants it. He most probably has tablet, smartphone, he's equipped with technology right in his pocket, probably in yours too. But right now, he finds no game to his taste on these platforms. So that's why I call it, he's the blue ocean right now. On that platform, on the new market of tablets and smartphone and social and free-to-play, nothing talks to him. And as I said before, he's actually quite social, despite what social gaming tends to say. But current games don't really appeal to him the way they should because of the way they recently evolved. So we're going to talk about this. So it's all about innovation, right? You probably remember that logo back in the 80s when it sported the rainbow. The logo represented change. They disrupted the market. They said, we're going to break that old gray box and provide with something that's cool and the users can relate to. And gradually, as they achieve a dominant position in the market, they changed the logo. Right now, it's all gray. Interesting, because at first they were saying we're going to fight the gray box. But anyways, the CEO, or the former CEO of Google, Eric Schmidt, said that you need two types of people in order to be innovative in your company. First, you need those that represent order and leadership, that try to make sure that the structure strives, the managers. And the second type is the people that actually dissent. The people that say, no, we should do it another way, we should do it better, that are trying to look for disruption. And he says you have to look for those that disagree and you have to let them speak up. I'm not saying one is better than another. I'm saying it's a balance between conformism and progressivism. Because you need both. You need one that is going to try to break the mold and make it evolve. And you also need the types that say, okay, evolution, change hurts, you know, can create damage, so let's regroup and heal our wounds. So the key word here is balance. And I don't think in the last few years we had balance. I think the last few years was mostly about business and, you know, making money, which is okay, but sometimes. So I'm not really here to talk about conformists, but instead to people that want to anticipate, embrace change, because the times, they're changing, right? So up until now, you know, the industry has been pretty much hit and miss. We tried stuff, and sometimes it succeeds, sometimes it didn't. We don't really know how to anticipate success, but we know some forms have emerged as successful. So the industry, because it wants to limit risk, it's a big money industry, we go for the forms that work. So that's why it became pretty much formulaic. But as environment changes, we have new pieces to the puzzle now. So how do we adapt to this? And that's very challenging to our industry because it's mainly, you know, business driven, and it wants to control risk. So that's our business-driven industry, right? And the recent changes, the new concepts, that's why I need my own PC to show the tech. You know, the business-driven industry is challenged by this new concept. Giving things for free, keeping costly servers up, you know, it doesn't make sense. It's not natural for that type of people. So we develop template and generally set in stone what we mean by social gaming and free-to-play. And it pretty much blends together the type of product and the market we're going after, which leads us to miss the picture. And also is a problem when we want to adapt to market evolution. So at a conference last year, there was someone that was giving a talk on how they approached monetization in social gaming space. And as he was talking about social gaming, I was like, but doesn't make any sense. You know, it's an abuse of language because what he meant was casual social gaming, as if the gamers were not social. But the real kick came in when he was discussing the different elements that they were proposing to monetize. You know, content was being gated behind premium fees that you could micro pay for. And an idea popped up in the office that became a joke. They said, what if, you know, the player pays $100, he should be able to roll the ending credits right away, right? And of course, everybody was laughing and laughing for months and weeks. And I can understand, you know, it's a pretty good joke. But I wasn't really amused myself. I was like, really? You pay to finish the game? Okay, well, you know, I think we have a problem in conception here. This is pretty much what game developers looked like back in the 80s. They were pretty, you know, passionate about what they were making. They were free to do whatever they wanted. And even the publishers, they were like, oh, it looks cool, so I'm going to sign you a contract, actually give you hardware so you can develop whatever you want, and that's going to be fine. You know, I grew up playing these games. As you said, pretty much dates me also. But I must, you know, it's changed quite a bit in the meantime. At one point, games became very complicated. That's pretty much the final evolution of that trend of I want to do whatever I want to do. I want to do what I would like to play with. And with more computing power, why not making more complex? So Rainbow Six was released in '98, and as I was preparing for an interview for Ubisoft, I booted up that game and I played the first level. And I was like, there's 3 teams. You control 3 squads in that game. And I couldn't do anything. I was trying to get them to move. So I actually realized, oh, each of the keyboard keys have an action, just like a flight simulator. So I started pushing each key. And for each key, it was like, OK, Roger, I'm going to flank left or whatever. You know, each key was a different order. By the end of me, you know, when I had reached the end of the keyboard, my teammates had completed the mission on their own. I was like, you know, I was a pretty hardcore player. And I was like, well, that's beyond hardcore. So that game, you controlled 3 teams. You had a planning phase where you basically scripted your teammates. And whenever your teammates would die, they would be perma-dead. And you would lose their experience points. Now, you know, the market evolved from there. And after the success of Rainbow Six 3, which was a huge success in Xbox One, Rainbow Six Vegas came out. And it was pretty much the pinnacle of streamlining the franchise. Well, actually, it's the last game also. Maybe the next one is going to be even more streamlined. I don't know. But the gameplay got gradually simplified, and focus went into the setting and storytelling. From controlling 3 teams, you ended up controlling you and your 2 teammates. From planning tactics and scripting your teammates, it became only real-time situations, and you could give orders, but the level of complexity went down quite a lot. And also, from permadeath, you ended up having regenerative health. So, you know, that's not a bad example, because in many ways, it made the game way more enjoyable for a large amount of people. But it just shows how the ceiling of complexity and depth got gradually lowered. And that's okay. It favors an easier to get in experience. That's fine. And I actually had great success on how it plays. Like the cover system and the order system were pretty slick. But basically, you could do less, and whatever you could do was easier to do. So, I don't want to badmouth that. It had a huge success on the market at the time it came out. And there was a similar tendency with online games. It's interesting to note how complexity was gradually fought off of these games. Ultima Online started as an open type economy. There was an open skill competency system that you could tailor your characters the way you wanted. It was a totally player-driven economy, an open PvP system where you could attack whoever you wanted, and the players would have to enforce law themselves if they wanted any law. So it was a pretty deep environment. And I know that World of Warcraft can be played pretty hardcore, but when you look at it, it's actually way more simple because you have classes, so you cannot really tailor your character the way you want. It's not as open of a system as Ultima Online is. So the thing is, even though it has a huge success in terms of players, the trend was lower the ceiling, not to scare people away. Because it's true that you need balls of steel to join a server of Quake Live right now, because you have kids, or not kids anymore, but you have people that have been playing that game for 12 years now, and they're waiting for you on the servers right now. So by lowering the ceiling was a great idea in order to open up and to have a wider success for these big companies that need wide success to be successful, because they invest a lot of money to be successful. So there's another trend beside lowering the ceiling that has been used in order to increase sales, and that's accessibility. Accessibility is a good thing. Making sure your player always knows what he's supposed to do next is a good idea globally for design. It's a good design practice. So your users, they never feel inadequate. Nintendo was our example on accessibility whenever I worked at Ubisoft. And they really outdid themselves with the Wii. Actually, having that controller that didn't look like a 10-button Xbox controller was just like a remote. So no one was afraid to start playing. It was easy for anyone to start to pick up the controller and just play. So non-gamers could get into the fray. They weren't intimidated. They weren't afraid. Zynga and Games on Facebook pretty much did the same. They said, let's make gaming so easy, so non-gamey, that everybody can get in. And actually, they also said, let's force players to invite their friends so they can move on. And these games didn't even look like video games. It's pretty much like your grandma that's playing Free Cell and says, "Oh, I'm not playing these video games, but she's playing Free Cell." So non-gamers felt safe playing that, and so they got in and they got all of their friends in, because getting in was easy and not scary. But what happens, when you simplify on one end, you lower the ceiling, and also you make the doorway easy to get in. So you simplify and you do accessibility. Well, you get the Hobbit hole. And a Hobbit hole is nice. You can invite tons of your friends and have great parties, and that's great for a time. But there's two problems with Hobbit holes. First, and I'm sorry I'm using that example. I guess people here worked on that game here. When you lower the ceiling so low that there's no challenge anymore, the problem is the gamers, they bump their heads. Like it's too cramped. They're like, but I want challenge. I want something deep. And that's pretty much the prime example of going for a template and just shoehorning a new thing in. That's like, let's take Burnout and let's try to make it fit with the Kinect. So that's the type of problem when you just try to use a formulaic approach to adapting to evolution, to evolve. The second problem is that people that play learn and get more and more apt to play, because games teach us to be better. So, and as they get more apt, being in an environment that always tells you what to do next, holds your hand, becomes detrimental. I don't want to be told, because figuring out what to do next is part of the game now that I'm not afraid to play the game. Even Mr. Iwata recognized that the fact that the Wii, the first Wii, didn't cater for gamers was a limitation for them in the market. And that's why they said, okay, for the Wii U, we're going to try to expand and talk more to the gamers and make the games more deep. And that's why, you know, on the launch title, as a launch title, you have gamer-oriented type games. In the social gaming market, it's actually the same thing. Nowadays, actually it started last year, but even the core target of social gaming, the 30-plus female players, they're saying that the game is too shallow for them now, and they want more depth. That's because they're not afraid to play anymore. They've learned how to play, how to push start, and now they just want more. And that's why these days you see more and more games like Bubble Witch Saga that actually involve skill and involve some challenge now, because having no challenge, just clicking on crops, doesn't cut it anymore. This is just like Puzzle Bobble, right, from the 90s. So for gamers, it's like, yeah, well, okay, it's Puzzle Bobble. But what I'm saying is, even for non-gamers or even social gamers, they need more and more challenge because they're learning. You know, I'm sorry, I'm not part of a big publisher house anymore, so I don't have access to tons of hard data. But maybe the stock price of Zynga can serve as an argument for my plea. So let's try to get a little deeper and analyze why do people play. Non-intelligent creatures, they evolve strictly through mutation, and this is random. So sometimes mutation is going to give you a trait that makes you fit. Sometimes it's going to give you a mutation that just leads you to disappear and die. Of course, bacteria, they don't play. They don't have behaviors. They just rely on random evolution. Intelligent creatures, they have behaviors. So some behaviors can be good, some behaviors can be bad, but it's not always a behavior that's going to kill you. You know, you can readjust. You can actually be encouraged by your environment to change to another behavior. If you look at dogs, for example, they evolve to have a behavior where they follow the pack member that looks strong, and they try to attack a pack member that looks weak and unstable. That's a feedback loop into supporting the strong traits and trying to dampen the weak traits. So that's just another degree of adaptation. And gaming, playing, is a behavior. We all play. All intelligent animals actually play. Why do we play? Is that, you know, we look for pleasure. We want to achieve pleasure. We are motivated by pleasure. So whatever the biochemistry of it, let's just abstract it. So you have things that trigger pleasure. That's all we want to know. And there's different type of behaviors that when you do them give you pleasure. And what's interesting is when you look at these behaviors, you know, you always want to achieve pleasure for your players, and you're like, but what is the biochemistry? You know, what is the neuroscience tell us? What you can say is, because we are adapted to our environment, most likely, whatever we're good at, whatever is good for us, is going to give us pleasure. Because if it didn't, we would be extinct. We would have extinct anyways. So, you know, what we're good at is likely to be a source of pleasure. So like raising kids, we're good at it. It's a good thing for us. It's actually a source of pleasure for us. So games, the function of games is to provide a safe environment for us to grow and learn and get better at what we're doing. But of course, you know, nature doesn't have morals, just like science. And sometimes we have bugs in our systems that can be exploited by our psychologist friends. It's possible to bypass the source of pleasure and to focus on just achieving pleasure itself. And there's a famous experiment where an ape got his pleasure centers hired to a button, so he could activate and get pleasure anytime he wanted. Result was he just died out of starvation because he just wanted the instant pleasure out of pressing button. He wouldn't even feed himself. And it's similar to us. We have what they call psychological biases, and that's we all know that we have a tendency to give bad estimates on how long a task is going to take us, and we also have a tendency of whatever, like when I indulge into an activity, I give more value to that activity, even though really it has little value. Social games have been exploiting these biases. Social games focus on just delivering pleasure in an alien fashion. The mechanics are based on guilt, shame, and envy to make the player pay to avoid these bad feelings. There's an interesting thesis from 2006 that studies the relationship between addiction and the structural characteristics of MMO. And the conclusions are such. These are the three elements that make something most addictive. Whenever you have a few rewarding activities, whenever you have a short time between an action and a reward, and whenever you have a huge discrepancy between a small input and a huge output, this is what's going to make an activity most addictive. Of course, it corresponds to the characteristics of drugs, and it can give you an insight of why are they so addictive. Now, if you apply this conclusion to a model like Diablo, in Diablo, you mainly have one way to get rewards, is to kill mobs. And when you start, you pretty much one-shot mobs. So you have one type of activity that's rewarding, and it's very simple. You just click, it explodes. It's very short too. Also, the reward is very, very rewarding because even though you just loot 1 or 2 gold pieces, you're going to see a fountain of gold pieces. So that situation is like, it scores everywhere on the most addictive. So what happens now? The mobs get tougher. So you have to click more to kill them. So it's less addictive. But the games actually gives you loot. And whenever you score that magical ring, you go back to one-shotting mobs. So the game sets you up in the most addictive situation, takes it away from you, and then motivates you to get back to being addicted to the max. It's actually the same with Facebook, like Farmville. Farmville, you have no challenge, so you just click, and in 30 seconds, I'm going to be able to harvest whatever plant I planted. So it's very simple. The short time between action and reward. What's interesting is as you go up the ladder, you start to putting on, planting flowers or whatever. It takes more time to harvest. So it's less addictive. But you can pay. They tell you if you pay, you can go back to full addiction. It's pretty strange, right? So knowing what addiction can do to you is very strange that the industry is trying to deliver it to the players. And the state lets us do it, right? Actually, even in Japan, they started saying, no, some microtransaction schemes are too addictive and it is being restricted by law. But so what's the difference between motivation and addiction? It really depends on what you focus on. Do you focus on the journey or do you focus on the destination? If you motivate your players to go through the journey of triggering pleasure because of their work, it's actually what nature is made for. So it's actually good. That's what I call motivation. If you motivate your player to learn and to exert himself and to work to achieve pleasure, that's motivation. If you just give pleasure right away, that's what I call addiction. And that's bad, right? The way I look at it, the casual social games are a computer-generated dream world built to keep us under control in order to change a human being into this. Tricking our brains to come back for the fix of dopamine is pretty bad, not only morally, but also business-wise, because they realize that addiction is not the best way at all to motivate your customers long-term. So you remember what I said about nature? It was just trying to optimize survivability. Well, businesses do too. And so the Federal Reserve Bank, they're not really like, gamers themselves. They said, okay, let's ask let's ask a couple universities, actually the MIT, the University of Chicago, and Carnegie Mellon, to study how money acts as a motivator. And they realized for assembly line type work, for repetitive work, it actually is a good motivator. But for any task that involve cognition, it's actually a bad motivator. It gives bad results. And really what he says is that autonomy, competency, and purpose, which are our intrinsic needs, what we really need to be better individuals, is the best form of motivation. They actually studied and realized that if you provide this to someone, it's the best long-term motivation, which is what you want. You want players to go back to your game and to play for months, and maybe even be ready to play your next game. So what's interesting is it's also what small companies like Google and Valve, they use to motivate their employees. They say, you have that dedicated time when you can do whatever you want. And that's where they get the most results. So going for intrinsic needs is not only good morally, it's also good business-wise. Of course, it's actually harder to target and satisfy because you can't really make that up. So here's the situation. I think geek is chic now. I think current gamers are underserved. I think non-gamers evolved into gamers. And in my opinion, intrinsic motivation is not only ethical, but also the best way to engage customers long-term. So where do we go from here? How can we adapt the lessons of AAA games and social gaming to the gamers that don't want to spend time playing the next Call of Duty or don't want to play Farmville? Gamers are here. When you look at these games, they're pretty deep. The players, they have to work for their dopamine, right? It's a good demonstration that if you make it deep, they will come. But these games pretty much follow the old fashion of box games, and not all that much for Minecraft, but that's not what we want to do, right? We want to be agile. We want to take advantage of digital distribution. We want to be able to be quick on the market and deliver these deep games directly to the smartphones of our players, right? So how do we evolve? We know the gamers are here, but how do we adapt that to current market? Actually, I'm talking about the future, but I'll go back. When you played Double Dragon, you could control the game so well that you could beat the game without losing one life. Because they wanted to eat your coins, they said time equals money. That was the typical paradigm of arcade games. But with skill, you could offset the equation and say, I have more skill, so I can get more time out of my coins. Now, Double Dragon 3 came out, and just by looking at the poster, you can figure out who had his say on the design of the game. It's not about fight or be the most skillful fighter. It's about you have more, 3 times more fighters. In that game, you had shops, and when you enter the shops, you could buy weapons like bats or nunchucks, or unlock new special moves, or unlock new characters, but you had to pay real money for it. It was your real credits that would go and buy this. So it totally destroyed this, because it was not like, I don't unlock stuff because I'm better, I just unlock stuff because I pay. You can imagine that I only played that game once, because it's, for me, it didn't make it at all. But so how about this model, for example? You can actually do the quest, or you can pay to have them done automatically. What does it tell you about the fun you get making the quests, like playing the quests? It must be pretty enjoyable, if you can pay to skip it, right? I think the paradigm is such. You have time, and you have stamina, like how much can I endure playing these quests? And if I run out of stamina, I can pay to skip them. That's how much it uses of bugs to make us pay, right? It's crazy. Pay to skip the nonsense. If you compare it to Zelda, who in his right mind would actually pay to get the Master Sword instead of running through the quest to get it? No one, because it's fun to get through the quest. It's fun to own the sword, not just to own it and to show your friends, but just because you know the next quest is going to be even better with the sword. So paying to skip the content is just like, oh, I'm reading that great book, I want to skip to the next page. But actually, you asked me to pay for it. It's crazy. But if you realize this and we know that's not what gamers want, what happened to Diablo and the auction house? To me, that's an example of trying to adapt to the new model, but saying, okay, you can. The whole idea of Diablo is I grind the game, and I learn a bit, and so I can adapt my character, and I want to drop these crazy items. But now I can just buy them. I'm buying the Master Sword. So to me, that's wrong. And the thing is, a businessman would look at this like time and stamina. When you run out of stamina, you can pay to skip it, and you would say, oh, it's a great idea to make money. The thing is, it's the red ocean. It's been done over and over and over. So if you want to do it, you already know how to do it. The thing is, I think that there's a better way. So what is my model for the social core gamer? For me, it's what I call the dopamine field. What core gamers need is they need to see the potential for pleasure. They need to see that through hard work and being smart, they can increase their skills and they can get that pleasure. They don't want to go and buy their fix of dopamine right away. And actually, cocaine is a direct substitute of dopamine. So they don't want to enjoy immediate pleasure. They want to enjoy working for it. That's what they like. So how does that translate into a free-to-play model? A small game you might have heard of. Over 30 million players, mainly male between 16 and 30. They're educated. The game has been in a competitive scene since 2010, and the numbers, they just kill StarCraft 2 in terms of audience, player base, and prize pool. So what happens when a player starts a free account? He can play one of the free characters, and he can see right away that there's depth. He can see the dopamine field. He sees the pleasure, the potential of pleasure to learn and to harvest that field. But by the end of the week, hero rotation kicks in, and he can't play that hero anymore. So, he started learning about that hero, and now he cannot play it anymore. He goes back to zero. Or he can play with the new free heroes, but the better dopamine is the one that's deeper, right? So now he can pay to buy that hero and see how deep the rabbit hole goes. And that's fair for the core gamer because he saw the quality, he saw the depth, so he's like, I know exactly what I'm getting, and what I'm getting looks pretty good. Furthermore, after he bought his champion, the game lets you buy custom skins and fancy hats and stuff like that. And what it means is it's just an avenue to show off his commitment to the game, with the other term you call being a geek. So I can be the biggest geek in the crowd if I do it. Path of Exile is also hitting on the core gamer market with a free-to-play action RPG, pretty much in the vein of Diablo. They monetize access to the beta, pretty much in the way Kickstarter does. And that helps you create great word of mouth, especially because of all the Twitch TV streaming. So the dedicated players actually are your advocate for the rest of the crowd. As you can see with the skill tree, that's only a part of the skill tree. There's depth in how much you can customize and make builds for your character. So you see the depth here, that's your dopamine field. What's interesting is the game is going to be free at launch. So everybody can come in and see the depth. The model is that they're going to offer convenience. They're going to offer chest storage space. You can increase the storage of your chest. They're going to offer a character slot, so you can explore the system even more, trying to make different characters. They're going to offer guild-related features, like you can have a guild chest, you can have guild hole and stuff like this. They're also going to offer cosmetic customization, and they're going to offer access to special events. Many other games follow that pattern. Actually, when you look at Infinity Blade, it's not a free-to-play game at all, but it's still a pretty good demonstration of what happens when you go for that underserved core audience. The game came out on iPad, pretty much the only core gamer-worthy game, made 35 million. Pretty good. Other games are targeting the core gamer crowd, right? And so it's becoming a trend. Even like Alex Seropian, he's been one of the founders and president of Bungie. He started his own company to make mobile games for gamers. You know Bungie, the guys that bought themselves out of Microsoft? Pretty smart guys, right? So, I mean, you know where the smart money is going. This is Valve, this is Alex Seropian. So I think the revolution has already started. And so let's get at it, guys. I want to play these games, right? So as a conclusion, you know, as a wrap, last slide. As a wrap-up, these are my elements of conclusion. On the left side, you have why I think the core gamer is a valid target right now. Let me, you know, there's more and more of them. They're underserved. Being a gamer becomes mainstream. On the right side, you have what I think are the how to target them. What do they expect from these games, and how to adapt, how to please core gamers through a free-to-play type scheme. So that's pretty much it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for inviting me. You can contact me on that address, and I'm open for questions.